You think Grandma shared all her kitchen secrets with the family? Think again. Behind every Sunday dinner, she kept a hidden arsenal of lightning-fast recipes that took just 10 minutes, perfected through decades of feeding hungry mouths on tight budgets. Here are 60 vintage 10-minute recipes Grandma refused to share until now. Country ham and red-eye gravy brought a bold, salty kick to the end of a long day, drawing on traditions that went back generations. Thin slices of country ham hit a hot skillet and sizzled until their edges crisped and their smoky scent filled the kitchen. Once the meat was removed, strong black coffee was poured into the pan to deglaze the savory bits, blending with a splash of water and a touch of butter to create the dark, rich gravy that gave the dish its name. The result was a sauce both bitter and savory, perfect for spooning over the ham or soaking into warm biscuits. In less than 15 minutes, the table held a meal that tasted slow, cooked, and soulful. Working families appreciated the speed while still honoring a Southern classic, and the sharp aroma of coffee and ham became a sign that dinner was ready. Each bite balanced salt, smoke, and a subtle bitterness, a reminder of farmhouse suppers where nothing was wasted and flavor came from skill and tradition rather than expensive ingredients. Cornflake peanut clusters delivered a satisfying crunch that ended many picnics on a sweet note. Cornflakes were poured into a wide bowl while peanut butter, sugar, and a splash of milk were heated together on the stovetop until smooth and bubbling. The hot mixture was poured over the cereal and stirred quickly to coat every flake before being dropped by spoonfuls onto wax paper. As the clusters cooled, they hardened into golden mounds that held their shape even in the warm afternoon sun. Each bite combined the nutty richness of peanut butter with the crisp texture of cornflakes, making them an instant favorite for children and adults alike. Because they required no baking and very little time, they became a go-to recipe for busy church members preparing food for large gatherings. The clusters could be made hours ahead and stayed fresh in simple tins, waiting to be shared after long conversations, hymns, and laughter beneath the shade of spreading oak trees. Buttermilk and cornflake smoothie surprised everyone with its creamy tang and subtle crunch, a quick breakfast drink that traveled easily to an early morning picnic. Tangy buttermilk was poured into a tall glass blender with a drizzle of honey, a pinch of nutmeg, and a handful of crisp cornflakes. As the blade spun, the cereal softened slightly, yet left tiny flecks that gave each sip a playful texture. Some cooks added ripe banana or a splash of vanilla for extra body, while others kept it plain to let the buttermilk shine. Served in chilled mason jars, the smoothie offered a nourishing start that felt like a cross between a milkshake and a classic Southern cereal bowl. Children delighted in the gentle sweetness and the faint crunch that lingered after every gulp. It was a clever way to stretch pantry staples and make something special when time was short and the churchyard was already filling with song. Hot slaw. Sandwich turned leftover cabbage into a warm and hearty meal that fit perfectly with the frugal habits of the Great Depression. Families would shred cabbage, onions, and carrots, then cook them down with vinegar, sugar, and a hint of mustard until the mixture became tender and tangy. This hot slaw was piled generously onto buttered buns or thick slices of bread, making a filling dinner when meat was out of reach. The heat of the slaw softened the bread slightly, creating a comforting texture that felt indulgent. Despite its simple ingredients, diners and boarding houses across the Midwest served it as a reliable daily special, while home cooks appreciated how it stretched a small garden harvest into a satisfying supper. Its aroma of sweet and sour cabbage would fill the kitchen and invite everyone to the table long after those lean years ended. The memory of that steaming sandwich lingered as proof that thrift and taste can live side by side. Cheeseburger. Mac Skillet turned a single pan into a complete dinner that filled plates and quieted hungry stomachs. Elbow macaroni boiled in salted water while ground beef browned in a deep skillet with chopped onions and a dusting of garlic powder. The drained pasta was folded into the sizzling meat along with a handful of shredded cheddar and a splash of milk, creating a creamy sauce as everything mingled over low heat. The smell of melting cheese and seared beef brought everyone to the kitchen before the cook could even call them. In less than 20 minutes, the dish was ready, bubbling and rich, served straight from the pan to eager bowls. Families loved how it combined the familiar taste of a cheeseburger with the comfort of macaroni and cheese, turning two favorites into one speedy supper. Leftovers reheated beautifully, though they rarely lasted long. Affordable, filling, and fun to eat, this skillet meal proved that a fast dinner could still taste like a weekend indulgence, feeding both nostalgia and appetite in every creamy, beefy bite.
So the 60s wasn't just marked by us being nosy about other people and their long-standing food traditions. It was a time of culinary experimentation, if the gelatin salads didn't already make that clear for you. One of these Frankenstein-esque experiments was the zucchini hamburger pie, which, yes, I know, that's a hard one to imagine. This pie is a quintessential mid-20th century banger, and it blends in the practicality of ingredients that typically make up a lot of grocery lists, like ground beef, and the variety that zucchini offers. The thing about zucchini is that it can work in a lot of different ways, which makes it really convenient. Funnily enough, that quality is exactly why it became as popular as it did during and right after the Second World War. This summer squash was suddenly one of the most cultivated crops around the nation, and its mild flavor made it a popular pick at most farmers' markets. It had its biggest market in the suburbs of the 60s, where lots of home cooks, moms, and grandmas relied on zucchini harvests for their show-stopping dishes. This combination of beef and zucchini in the form of a pie was definitely one of those main players in their roster. And it's a dish that, despite losing its relevance over the years, really made waves for how it explored some new ground in both the way you use a hamburger patty and what you can do with pie.
Coq au vin stands out as a rich, soul-warming dish that is achieved through a slow cooking process that melds the flavors of chicken and wine thoroughly. Traditionally used to soften tough roosters, modern recipes often utilize chicken, marinated, and then braised in wine, typically red, along with mushrooms, onions, garlic, and a bouquet garni. Initially, the chicken is seared until golden, then simmered slowly with lardons, which infuse a smoky depth. This technique showcases French braising skills, starting with a high sear followed by a gentle, prolonged cooking in a covered pot, allowing the intricate flavors to blend and enhance the meat. The selection of wine is pivotal, forming a flavorful sauce base that deeply seasons the chicken, transforming it into a hearty, deeply satisfying stew that exemplifies rustic yet refined French cooking.
Louise's lasagna was this adaptable lasagna recipe that did a lot of substituting and took advantage of the trends of the decade. Remember how we talked about the way people were really opening up to zucchini, and also how farming mushrooms was easier than it ever was? While we aren't sure who the first Louise to do it was, we do know that there were loads of people who made amazing use of both of those facts, and this lasagna is just one more testament to that statement. It basically substitutes a lot of typical lasagna ingredients. Normally, most Americans use cottage cheese in their lasagna. This time around, the dish asks for ricotta. You normally don't really see many vegetables in lasagnas either, but this time around, zucchini and mushrooms make a wonderful appearance as the B team for this dish. As far as the meats go, that area is pretty much the same. Lots of places had their own versions of spice blends and sauces that they'd save for this recipe. But the idea was basically to reinvent lasagnas with the trends of the times.
Cornmeal. Crusted catfish fillets brought the taste of a southern fish fry to the table in minutes, turning thin fillets into golden perfection. A simple dredge of cornmeal seasoned with salt, pepper, and a hint of cayenne coated the fish, while oil heated in a cast-iron skillet. As soon as the fillets touched the pan, they sizzled and released a savory aroma that promised a feast. In only a few minutes, each side crisped to a deep golden brown, while the flesh stayed tender and flaky. Remember those working man's dinners you could make in just 10 minutes after a long day on the line? These dinners filled mid-century kitchens with quick heat, heavy plates, and the smell of hard work turning into comfort. What did those rushed but satisfying nights give us that slower meals never could? Banana and mayo sandwich stood as a Southern classic where ripe bananas met smooth mayonnaise on soft white bread, creating a sweet and tangy combination that puzzled outsiders but delighted generations of families across rural towns. The creamy mayo blended with the natural sugar of the bananas, forming a rich spread that needed no extra seasoning. People enjoyed it chilled for a cooling summer lunch or packed it into lunch boxes for long days in the fields because the ingredients were cheap filling and easy to find during the 1930s and 40s when other fruits were scarce. This sandwich offered a satisfying taste of sweetness with a touch of protein from the mayonnaise. Some cooks added a sprinkle of salt or a dash of lemon juice, but tradition kept it simple. Church picnics and roadside diners both served it proudly, proving that comfort food often lives in the most unexpected pairings and its nostalgic charm still tempts adventurous eaters today. Ginger ale. Ice cream float pie turned a favorite soda shop treat into a picnic-ready dessert. A graham cracker crust was pressed firmly into a pie pan and chilled while vanilla ice cream softened slightly on the counter. The ice cream was then mixed with bubbly ginger ale until smooth and lightly frothy, creating a creamy filling with a gentle spice and fizz. This mixture was poured into the crust and left to firm in the icebox until ready to serve. Just before cutting, a thin layer of whipped cream was spread across the top and sprinkled with crushed ginger snaps for extra crunch. Each slice tasted like an old-fashioned float, cool and sweet with a hint of ginger warmth. Because it required no baking and could be prepared hours ahead, it became a go-to dessert for hot summer gatherings. Children loved the effervescent flavor, while adults appreciated the nostalgic nod to soda fountain days. It captured the playful side of church picnics, where families mingled under the trees and every dish held a touch of celebration. Ranchero bean tostadas brought the lively spirit of a cantina to the weeknight table using only a few ingredients. Crisp corn tortillas toasted under the broiler formed a sturdy base for creamy refried beans straight from the can, warmed with a dash of cumin and a spoonful of diced tomatoes. A quick sprinkle of shredded cheddar melted under the heat, creating a golden crust that held everything together. Fresh salsa, sliced jalapenos, and a handful of chopped cilantro added color and brightness, turning a simple pantry meal into a vibrant feast. In less than 15 minutes, each tostada emerged hot and ready, inviting everyone to add their favorite toppings like sour cream or diced avocado. The crunchy base and savory beans offered a satisfying contrast that pleased both children and adults, proving that meatless dinners can still feel indulgent and filling. Every bite carried smoky spice and fresh garden flavor, perfect for nights when time was short, but a craving for bold taste remained strong, making this dish a regular star in kitchens that celebrated speed and flavor in equal measure. Vinegar pie sipper brought the spirit of frugality to the picnic in a surprisingly refreshing drink. This old-fashioned recipe started with a tangy syrup made by simmering cider vinegar with lemon peel and sugar until it thickened into a golden concentrate. Once cooled, the syrup was mixed with cold well water or chipped ice to create a drink that tasted like the sweet tart filling of a lemon pie. Some church cooks added a dash of nutmeg or cinnamon to give it a warm depth, while others left it pure and bright. It was served in simple mason jars or paper cups and offered an alternative to the usual sweet tea. The drink shocked newcomers with its first sip, tart enough to wake the senses yet soothing on a humid afternoon. It reminded everyone that ingenuity could turn pantry staples into something memorable and thirst-quenching. Children often puckered and laughed at the sharpness, while elders smiled, recalling how such recipes stretched budgets and lifted spirits during harder times when nothing could be wasted and every gathering celebrated resourcefulness. Peanut butter and lettuce sandwich surprised first-time tasters with its mix of creamy richness and crisp freshness. Smooth peanut butter spread thick across soft bread formed a savory base, while cool iceberg lettuce leaves added crunch and a faint grassy sweetness. The combination offered a pleasing contrast of textures that turned an ordinary pantry staple into something special. Families embraced it during the 1930s and 40s for its affordability and nutrition, since peanut butter supplied protein and lettuce brought vitamins. Without costing much, it was a popular school lunch because it traveled well and stayed fresh even on warm days. Some cooks drizzled a little honey or sprinkled salt for extra flavor, but many insisted the pure pairing was best remembered as a Depression-era innovation. The peanut butter and lettuce sandwich remains a clever example of how American home cooks turned limited resources into meals that were both practical and unexpectedly delightful to eat. Creamed peas on toast turned a bag of frozen peas and a little flour into a fast dinner that warmed the evening. Butter melted in a skillet while a spoonful of flour was whisked in to make a smooth roux. Then milk streamed in to form a creamy sauce. The peas went straight from freezer to pan, bright green against the pale gravy as they softened and released their sweetness. Thick slices of bread toasted in the same pan or under a quick broiler became the foundation, soaking up the sauce while staying crisp at the edges. A sprinkle of black pepper and a pinch of nutmeg gave the dish surprising depth, proof that simple pantry ingredients could still feel indulgent. Families loved how it filled plates in less than 10 minutes and cost almost nothing, making it a dependable weeknight standby. Children liked the mild flavor and the fun of cutting through the soft bread with a fork, while adults found comfort in its quiet, creamy richness. One bite carried the memory of suppers built on thrift and ingenuity, a reminder that speed and satisfaction can share the same plate when time and money are scarce, but hunger is real.
On the other hand, you have chicken Parisienne. This is a dish that makes a lot of use of French techniques to give you authentic American flavors with a new twist. Sautéed chicken, or baked, with a rich and vibrant sauce that makes use of white wine and mushrooms. Sounds pretty European already, aren't we? Are you a little curious as to why so much of this list has massive French influences? It's because that's the direction Americans wanted to take their diets in after the World War. The second one, at least, led to a lot of people exploring foreign cuisines. One of the most well-established ones was French cooking, and people really wanted to see more of that. There was a practical reason, too. People realized the importance of taking a page out of the books of others, because lots of cultures and cuisines were more resourceful with their food. Things like chicken Parisienne were a fine example of how French techniques and recipes could take simple ingredients and make them into a wonderful main course. Americans typically needed a lot of dairy to do that, and that was something the public was trying to cut down on.
Crown roast of lamb is an exquisite dish often reserved for special occasions and holiday feasts. This majestic preparation involves arranging racks of lamb into a circular shape that resembles a crown, with ribs pointing skyward. It's seasoned with a mix of rosemary, garlic, and thyme, both in the marinade and as a rub applied before roasting. To enhance its flavor and retain moisture, the crown center is typically filled with a stuffing composed of breadcrumbs, minced garlic, herbs, and occasionally dried fruits like apricots or cranberries. The lamb is roasted until it achieves a tender texture and a beautifully browned exterior. Precision in tying the racks together ensures the roast cooks evenly. To perfect its presentation, chefs often cover the tips of the ribs with foil during roasting to prevent charring. This dish not only dazzles as a culinary delight, but also stands as a festive centerpiece, symbolizing celebration and feasting. Fish stick. Po' boy brought a taste of the Gulf Coast to busy kitchens using only what sat in the freezer. Packaged fish sticks baked or pan-fried until their coating turned golden and crunchy, while soft sandwich rolls warmed in the oven. Tartar sauce was stirred together with chopped pickles, a squeeze of lemon, and a little mustard, filling the kitchen with a tangy scent. Shredded lettuce and thin tomato slices waited on the counter, ready to add freshness and color. As soon as the fish sticks finished, they were stacked inside the rolls, drizzled with the cool sauce and topped with the crisp vegetables. The contrast of hot, flaky fish and chilled toppings tasted like a seaside lunch, even on a weeknight far from the water. In less than 15 minutes, a handful of inexpensive ingredients became a meal that felt special, making families forget how quickly it came together. Every crunchy bite delivered the carefree feeling of a coastal vacation without leaving the house, a reminder that a freezer staple can still capture the spirit of a faraway kitchen when imagination and hunger meet. Radish and butter tea sandwiches brought a cool garden freshness to the heavy tables of fried chicken and sweet cakes. Paper-thin slices of peppery radish were laid over squares of soft white bread, generously spread with creamy butter. A pinch of flaky salt highlighted the contrast between the mild richness of the butter and the crisp, sharp bite of the radish. These dainty sandwiches were cut into neat rectangles or triangles and stacked on china plates or simple enamel trays depending on the church's supplies. They provided a delicate counterpoint to the more filling picnic staples and reminded everyone of the season's first harvest from backyard plots. Children often reached for them out of curiosity and discovered a flavor that was both bright and satisfying. Because they could be prepared quickly and held well in the cool shade, they became a dependable offering at many gatherings. Their simplicity captured the essence of the era when garden vegetables and homemade bread were celebrated as everyday gifts to be shared in fellowship and gratitude. Ham and cheese biscuit sandwiches turned leftovers into a satisfying handheld meal that tasted like a weekend treat even on the busiest night. Flaky biscuits baked from a can or quickly mixed from scratch rose high in the oven while slices of baked ham warmed in a skillet. As soon as the biscuits were golden, they were split open and layered with the savory ham and slices of sharp cheddar or mild American cheese. A few minutes back in the warm oven melted the cheese into a gooey blanket that glued everything together. The salty ham, buttery biscuit, and rich cheese made a perfect combination that required no side dish and no long wait. For families coming home late, this sandwich was both supper and comfort, a way to turn yesterday's roast into tonight's fast feast. Children grabbed them hot from the tray, and the memory of that warm bite remains an echo of efficiency and home-style pleasure. Soda Pop Pound Cake Cups turned an ordinary boxed mix into a church picnic marvel that delighted every sweet tooth in the crowd. Home bakers poured orange soda straight into yellow cake batter, skipping milk or water, which gave the cupcakes a fragrant citrus lift and a tender crumb that stayed moist for hours. The carbonation worked magic in the oven, creating a light, airy texture, while the soda's sugar deepened the golden color of the crust. Each cupcake baked quickly in paper liners so they could be passed around to children running barefoot across the grass or packed into baskets without worry. A thin glaze of powdered sugar and a few spoonfuls of the same soda finished them off with a bright, sticky sheen that caught the sunlight and made them shine. Guests were amazed at how a single bottle of soda transformed a humble mix into something worth writing down. And cooks loved how easy it was to prepare large batches when time was short, and the fellowship hall was already buzzing with music and laughter. These little cakes were proof that a playful idea and a splash of soda could turn a simple treat into a memory of summer joy and community spirit. Peach and cottage cheese sandwich captured the cheerful sweetness of summer with canned peaches mashed gently into creamy cottage cheese for a filling that was both refreshing and satisfying. This mixture was spooned onto soft white bread, sometimes chilled beforehand for extra coolness. On hot days, the mild tang of the cottage cheese balanced the syrupy fruit, creating a flavor that felt indulgent without being heavy. Families discovered this recipe during the 1940s when canned fruit became a pantry staple and cottage cheese was celebrated for its protein content, making the sandwich both economical and nourishing. It was especially popular for picnics and garden lunches because it traveled well and stayed pleasant even without refrigeration. The peach and cottage cheese sandwich remains a sunny reminder of how simple ingredients could brighten a table and bring a taste of warm weather to any meal year-round. Ranchero bean tostadas brought the lively spirit of a cantina to the weeknight table using only a few ingredients. Crisp corn tortillas toasted under the broiler formed a sturdy base for creamy refried beans straight from the can, warmed with a dash of cumin and a spoonful of diced tomatoes. A quick sprinkle of shredded cheddar melted under the heat, creating a golden crust that held everything together. Fresh salsa, sliced jalapenos, and a handful of chopped cilantro added color and brightness, turning a simple pantry meal into a vibrant feast. In less than 15 minutes, each tostada emerged hot and ready, inviting everyone to add their favorite toppings like sour cream or diced avocado. The crunchy base and savory beans offered a satisfying contrast that pleased both children and adults, proving that meatless dinners can still feel indulgent and filling. Every bite carried smoky spice and fresh garden flavor, perfect for nights when time was short, but a craving for bold taste remained strong, making this dish a regular star in kitchens that celebrated speed and flavor in equal measure.
So one of the most memorable things to come out of the Great Depression and wartime cooking was the extreme focus on all kinds of stews. People were realizing more than ever before that a stew is the best way to have food for a few days and keep a family well fed. Mushrooms are already something we've discussed in extensive detail. The type of mushrooms that were getting popular isn't really something we went over though. Here, and in fact most of these dishes, a lot of people would use portobello mushrooms. Those were the most common ones next to button and cremini mushrooms, thanks to how rich they were in flavor. It's the same reason people love shiitake mushrooms in their hot pot and ramen. It's just one of the best ways to have a stew, and it works for the vegetarian crowd too. Some mushrooms, like lion's mane, actually have a really similar texture and flavor to meat. This helps them transition to a meat-free lifestyle. There are lots of pros about mushrooms. They're cheap, easy to handle, can work in a number of things, and have a lot of flavor. Stews are still one of the healthiest meals you can ever have, so mixing the two together was a solid favor that Americans did for themselves and their health.
Rabbit stew is a beloved traditional dish in various cultures, renowned for its hearty and comforting nature. This stew typically features tender pieces of rabbit slow-cooked with onions, garlic, and aromatic herbs like rosemary or thyme, which subtly enhance the mild flavor of the rabbit. Additional vegetables such as carrots, celery, and potatoes often join the mix, creating a robust one-pot meal. The stewing liquid, usually wine or stock, enriches the dish, lending depth and complexity as it simmers. Rabbit meat, known for its leanness and delicacy, benefits greatly from the slow cooking process, becoming incredibly tender and infused with the rich flavors of the broth and vegetables. Rabbit stew is especially appreciated during the colder months or in rural settings where rabbit is a common game meat.
While exploring the many flavors and styles of the subcontinent has been a recent development, the seeds for it were being sown with recipes like chicken and collards pilau. This Southeast Asian dish was adapted in the southern parts of America, and while it was distinctly different from its authentic version in places like India, it was still a good attempt. Pilau itself is something that isn't entirely exclusive to Southeast Asia, though it also has African influences. Both styles of this dish were used across the states, with the South typically leaning more towards the version brought by the African diaspora. The cooking techniques here really involved a lot of slow cooking. The rice was supposed to be set to oil alongside the broth, which was loaded with vegetables and chicken. You had your onions, garlic, paprika, and bell peppers, which was a bit of a deviation from the typical recipe, but Americans need to adapt things for their own palates. Some people called it soul food, some people thought it was Indian cuisine breaking into America, but a lot of people tried it, enough that it stayed as a part of many menus even today, and that's how you know you have a good dish on your hands.
Cheddar and broccoli omelet made a hearty egg dinner with bright color and bold flavor in minutes. Eggs were whisked with a splash of milk and a pinch of black pepper, then poured into a hot skillet where butter foamed at the edges. Fresh or frozen broccoli florets steamed quickly in the microwave or in a small pan, keeping their green snap and gentle sweetness. As the eggs began to set, sharp cheddar cheese was scattered across the surface, releasing a nutty scent as it melted. The broccoli folded inside added texture and an earthy contrast to the creamy eggs. In less than 10 minutes, the omelet slid onto a plate, golden on the outside and gooey within. Served with toasted bread or a handful of greens, it offered both comfort and nourishment, proving that dinner can be simple, yet feel complete. This dish turned basic staples into a meal that pleased everyone at the table while leaving only one pan to wash, making it ideal for nights when time and patience were in short supply, but good food was still essential. Spinach and egg sandwich combined earthy greens with satisfying protein by mixing chopped cooked spinach and diced hard-boiled eggs in a mustard dressing that tied everything together. This nourishing blend offered a mellow bite with a subtle tang, perfect for quick lunches or light suppers. Families embraced it during the rationing years when eggs and garden spinach were affordable staples that delivered essential nutrients without great cost. The sandwich traveled well wrapped in wax paper and remained tasty at room temperature, making it ideal for workers and school children alike. A touch of black pepper or grated onion could be added for extra zest, but many preferred the pure, straightforward flavors that defined home cooking of the 1940s, though modern cafes rarely feature it. The spinach and egg sandwich reflects an era when simple, wholesome ingredients came together to create meals that were as practical as they were flavorful, offering a lesson in timeless kitchen economy. Pickled watermelon rind. Relish turned what many would throw away into a bright, tangy condiment that lifted every sandwich on the table. After the sweet red fruit was eaten, the firm white rinds were peeled, cubed, and simmered with vinegar, sugar, mustard seeds, and a pinch of cinnamon until they softened, yet kept a pleasant bite. The mixture was packed into jars and chilled, developing a flavor that balanced sweet and sour with a whisper of spice. On picnic day, it was spooned over pulled pork sandwiches, spread across hot biscuits, or served alongside fried fish, where its crispness cut through the richness perfectly. Elders smiled, remembering how this recipe saved money and honored a tradition of wasting nothing, while younger guests were amazed that something so flavorful could come from what most considered scraps. Its bright yellow-green color and lively taste made it a star of the condiment table, and a story every cook was proud to share. This relish captured the resourceful spirit of the 1960s church kitchen, where creativity and care transformed humble leftovers into something truly delicious. Meatball sub with Jared sauce turned a simple grocery shortcut into a filling dinner that satisfied every craving for Italian flavor without a long simmer. Pre-made meatballs went straight from the freezer into a skillet of bubbling jarred marinara, their aroma mingling with garlic and herbs as they heated through. Crusty sandwich rolls toasted under the broiler until the edges crisped and the centers stayed soft. As soon as the meatballs were hot and coated in rich sauce, they were spooned into the warm rolls and showered with shredded mozzarella that melted instantly. The result was a hearty sandwich with tender meat, tangy tomato, and gooey cheese in every bite, ready in less time than it took to set the table. Families loved how it felt like a deli treat even on a rushed weeknight, while kids enjoyed the messy fun of eating it with both hands. Each sub tasted slow-cooked and special, proof that smart shortcuts can create a dinner worth gathering around, bringing warmth and satisfaction to the end of a long day without draining time, energy, or budget. One pan, one jar, and a handful of rolls delivered comfort that lingered well past the last bite. Tomato and peanut soup brought a hearty yet thrifty option to the meal. Canned tomato soup was heated slowly with a spoonful of creamy peanut butter stirred in until it melted into a silky base. A pinch of cayenne or black pepper added gentle heat, while chopped onions or celery provided texture. The combination created a surprising depth of flavor, bright tomato balanced by the nutty richness of peanuts, that felt both comforting and exotic. This soup could be served hot on cool evenings or chilled for a refreshing lunch, making it flexible for year-round gatherings. It stretched ingredients beautifully, feeding many with just a few pantry staples, which made it a favorite among church cooks, mindful of budget and time. Served with crusty bread or simple crackers, it provided a protein boost that sustained singers and storytellers well into the evening. Guests often asked for the recipe, amazed at how two everyday ingredients could create something so unique and satisfying while reflecting the ingenuity of African-American kitchens. Anchovy and egg sandwich offered a bold coastal flavor that appealed to those who loved a briny bite. Finely chopped anchovies were blended with butter and mashed hard-cooked eggs, creating a creamy, salty spread that was both rich and nourishing. This hearty mixture found popularity in port cities and immigrant neighborhoods where tinned anchovies were inexpensive and plentiful. Families appreciated the protein boost during the lean war years, while diners enjoyed the unique taste that stood out among milder lunch offerings. A squeeze of lemon or a pinch of black pepper often rounded out the filling served on rye or crusty white bread. It provided a satisfying lunch that required no refrigeration and little effort. By the 1950s, changing tastes and a move towards sweeter, milder flavors pushed it aside. but the anchovy and egg sandwich still carries the memory of an era when bold ingredients and simple preparation came together to create something unforgettable and full of character. Texas chili dog plate made a hearty, messy dinner that satisfied every craving after a long workday. Hot dogs sizzled in a skillet while a can of chili warmed on the stove with a spoonful of cumin and smoked paprika to deepen the flavor. Soft buns were split and toasted lightly, ready to hold the hot dogs as soon as they browned. The steaming chili was spooned generously over each dog, followed by shredded cheddar and a scatter of diced onions for bite. The smell of spice and smoke filled the kitchen, drawing everyone to the table before the last dog was dressed. Each plate was a cheerful mess, requiring extra napkins and rewarding every bite with a mix of textures and flavors. It was inexpensive, quick and filling, perfect for nights when there was little time but big appetites. The combination of tender bun, juicy sausage, and rich chili sauce made this simple dish a lasting favorite in households that valued both speed and flavor.
Spaghetti diable is pretty much a pasta dish that's known for not being forgiving. Some dishes tend to be approachable. You feel like they're inviting you to try them, and they look irresistible too. Not this diable, not in any way at all. It looks like your typical plate of pasta, although with a lot of warm colors, but it tastes like it's trying to hurt you. This spaghetti is known entirely for its devilish heat, which has sent more than a few people to the counter asking for a glass of milk. It's not really the chili that does it this time. It's the black pepper. This pasta dish is known entirely for how spicy it can get, but the American version is actually a lot tamer. If you were making the original, authentic Italian version of the dish, which some communities and restaurants did, you'd be tackling an entirely different beast. On top of the black pepper and chili, you also have red pepper flakes and cayenne pepper in the sauce. So yeah, don't try this if you wouldn't bet money on your spice tolerance. I know I'd lose that bet, so I steer a little clear from dishes like these. But spicy variations of typical dishes like spaghetti were actually getting more and more popular throughout the 60s.
Galantine of chicken is a testament to the elaborate artistry of classical French cuisine, popularized in the 17th century. It involves a meticulous process where a whole chicken is deboned and stuffed with a seasoned mix of ground meat, fats, and spices, including luxurious touches like pistachios and truffles. The chicken is then encased back within its skin, poached in a flavorful stock and set to cool, often in the gelatin-rich cooking liquid, to form a jelly. Decorated with artistic slices of vegetables, herbs, or edible flowers and coated in a glistening aspic, galantine is served cold, making it a striking centerpiece for buffets and banquets. This dish not only showcases the culinary craftsmanship of detailed butchery and seasoning, but also the aesthetic presentation.
If you really go into the trenches of rustic, Southern cooking, you'll discover onion bowls. One thing about the wartime period was how much rationing was a thing throughout the country, and that basically meant that there was a void to fill. When the typical staple ingredients people were used to weren't available to them anymore, they had to make do with whatever was easy to grow. That meant a lot of potatoes and onions, but on their own, onions really didn't amount to all that. Onion boils, however, were a pretty nice and nifty little fix to that conundrum. These boils revolved around making your onions by placing them in a broth that had a lot of seasonings and sometimes other vegetables too. Home cooks thought it was a pretty inexpensive and frugal meal that helped stretch out your groceries just a bit more until the end of the month. A lot of people in the South also thought it made for a really good side dish too. I mean, after all, it is just onions in a broth with some seasonings. Home cooks would rely a lot on convenient food like this to pass the days, especially with more and more women taking up places in the workforce. This was a meal that even your kid could make for themselves easily.
Salisbury steak patties with gravy mix offered a hearty plate in minutes, transforming ground beef into something that tasted like a slow Sunday supper. Lean beef was seasoned with onion powder, garlic, and a splash of Worcestershire, then shaped into oval patties and seared in a skillet until crisp on the outside and juicy inside. While the meat browned, a packet of instant brown gravy whisked together with water created a smooth sauce in a separate pan. Once the patties were done, they were nestled into the bubbling gravy for a final simmer that coated them in rich flavor. Served over mashed potatoes or buttered toast, the meal felt far more elaborate than the clock revealed. Working parents loved the speed and the hearty comfort, while children scooped up every drop of gravy with the last crust of bread. It was a dinner that turned a simple pound of beef into something warm, filling, and memorable, the kind of dish that proves convenience and care can live on the same plate. Shrimp paste sandwich offered a briny elegance perfect for afternoon gatherings where seafood was a special treat. Finely minced shrimp was blended with lemon butter until smooth and spread across thin slices of rye bread for a delicate yet savory bite. The lemon brightened the natural sweetness of the shrimp, while the butter gave a silky richness that pleased both adults and children. During the 1940s and 50s, coastal communities loved this sandwich for its ability to showcase local catches without extravagant cost, and inland families relied on canned shrimp to bring a taste of the ocean to their tables. It became a popular starter at tea parties and church socials where guests admired its light texture and subtle flavor. Easy to prepare and quick to serve, it proved that even a small amount of seafood could create something memorable and refined, making the shrimp paste sandwich a forgotten gem worth revisiting today. Savory banana croquettes surprised picnic guests with a mix of gentle sweetness and light savory notes that turned a humble fruit into something remarkable. Ripe bananas were mashed with a pinch of salt and black pepper, then blended with fresh breadcrumbs and a spoonful of minced onion for a subtle bite. Small ovals were formed by hand, rolled in more crumbs, and fried in a shallow skillet until each croquette turned golden and crisp. The coating stayed delicately crunchy while the center remained soft and naturally sweet, a contrast that paired beautifully with roasted meats or a spoonful of spicy relish. Served warm on simple plates, these croquettes invited conversation as everyone tried to guess the unexpected ingredient hidden within. They proved that a common fruit could shine as a savory dish when seasoned with care, showing the creativity of church cooks who were never afraid to mix the familiar with the surprising to feed a joyful crowd. Vegetable fried rice with leftover meat transformed scraps and day-old rice into a fragrant dinner in less than 15 minutes. Cold-cooked rice was the key, each grain separating as it hit the hot oil of a wide skillet or wok. Bits of carrot, peas, and diced onions followed, their colors brightening as they sizzled. Leftover meat, whether pork chops, chicken, or beef, was sliced thin and tossed in with a splash of soy sauce and a drizzle of sesame oil. A quick scramble of eggs in the corner of the pan finished the dish, binding everything together with soft ribbons. The result was smoky and savory, carrying the scent of garlic and ginger through the house. Families appreciated how it cleared the refrigerator of odds and ends while creating a meal that tasted planned and special. Served hot straight from the pan, it proved that yesterday's rice and scraps of meat could become a satisfying dinner that rivaled takeout, saving both time and money without sacrificing flavor or comfort. Orange gelatin soufflé. Cups brought a cheerful glow to every picnic spread. Instant pudding was whipped together with gelatin and a splash of fresh orange juice until it became light and airy. The mixture was poured into individual cups and chilled until softly set, forming a dessert that looked like a true soufflé, but required no oven at all. When served, the cups revealed a pale orange hue and a delicate citrus scent that lifted spirits on even the warmest days. Topped with a dollop of lightly sweetened whipped cream, they offered a smooth, creamy bite that melted instantly on the tongue. Churchgoers admired how quickly these treats could be prepared while still looking fancy enough for a special gathering. Children loved the bright color and gentle wobble that made each spoonful fun, while adults found the flavor refreshingly light after a plateful of savory dishes. This dessert proved that with a few pantry staples and a bit of creativity, ham and pickle relish sandwich delivered a zesty twist to leftover ham by grinding it fine and mixing it with sweet pickle relish and a dab of mustard until the filling became a tangy spread that woke up any slice of bread. It was a thrifty recipe that turned holiday leftovers into weekday lunches, stretching every bit of meat during the lean years of the 1940s. Community cookbooks praised it for its bold flavor and economical use of ingredients. Families enjoyed the bright contrast of salty ham and sweet relish, while the mustard added a gentle heat that cut through the richness. It traveled well wrapped in wax paper for school or factory lunches, and stayed moist without refrigeration, making it a favorite of workers and picnickers alike. As the years passed, delicatessens shifted toward heavier cured meats, and the humble ham and pickle relish sandwich faded from menus, but its lively balance of sweet, sour, and savory still deserves a modern revival. Chicken fried rice with canned chicken delivered a satisfying stir-fry that used pantry staples to create takeout flavor in record time. Day-old rice separated beautifully in a hot skillet coated with a thin film of oil, each grain absorbing the smoky heat. Diced onions, carrots, and peas added color and sweetness, sizzling as they released their fragrance. A can of cooked chicken provided tender meat with no extra prep, breaking apart into savory shreds that mingled with the vegetables. A quick splash of soy sauce and a sprinkle of garlic powder tied everything together, while scrambled eggs folded in at the end brought richness and body. The result was a meal that tasted carefully crafted yet came together in less than 15 minutes, perfect for evenings when energy ran low but appetites ran high. Families loved how it stretched a small amount of protein across several generous portions while clearing the fridge of leftover rice. Each spoonful offered the comfort of home and the excitement of a restaurant favorite, a reminder that great flavor does not require a long list of fresh ingredients when skill and heat meet simple planning. Named in honor of the Italian opera singer Luisa Tetrazzini, chicken tetrazzini was reportedly whipped up by chef Ernest Arbogast at the Palace Hotel in San Francisco around the early 1900s. This dish, a testament to American culinary creativity, combines diced chicken and mushrooms with linguine or spaghetti in a sumptuous, creamy sauce that's often elevated with a splash of wine or sherry. Once assembled, it's liberally topped with grated Parmesan and baked until a golden crust forms on top. The addition of sherry or wine doesn't only boost the flavor, it also cuts through the cream's richness with its acidity. Typically, this dish is finished with a sprinkle of parsley or paprika to boost its visual appeal and add layers of subtle flavor. Despite its straightforward ingredients, chicken tetrazzini welcomes variations, such as almonds or pimentos, enhancing both its taste and texture. It's not just a delicious meal, but also a smart way to repurpose leftover chicken or turkey. Texas chili dog plate made a hearty, messy dinner that satisfied every craving after a long workday. Hot dogs sizzled in a skillet while a can of chili warmed on the stove with a spoonful of cumin and smoked paprika to deepen the flavor. Soft buns were split and toasted lightly, ready to hold the hot dogs as soon as they browned. The steaming chili was spooned generously over each dog, followed by shredded cheddar and a scatter of diced onions for bite. The smell of spice and smoke filled the kitchen, drawing everyone to the table before the last dog was dressed. Each plate was a cheerful mess, requiring extra napkins and rewarding every bite with a mix of textures and flavors. It was inexpensive, quick and filling, perfect for nights when there was little time but big appetites. The combination of tender bun, juicy sausage, and rich chili sauce made this simple dish a lasting favorite in households that valued both speed and flavor. Peanut butter stuffed dates were a small but mighty snack that offered quick energy for children racing across the picnic grounds. Plump pitted dates were split open and carefully filled with creamy peanut butter whose salty richness balanced the natural caramel sweetness of the fruit. A light sprinkle of coarse salt or finely chopped roasted peanuts added crunch and kept the flavors lively. These little bites required no baking and could be prepared in minutes, which made them a favorite for busy church cooks already juggling dozens of dishes. The sticky sweetness clung to fingers and lips, and many children giggled as they tried to eat them neatly, while elders smiled at the familiar sight. Packed into wax paper-lined tins, they traveled perfectly and stayed fresh even in the summer heat. Adults appreciated how such a simple combination could provide lasting energy for long conversations and gospel singing deep into the evening. Every bite carried the warmth of home kitchens where mothers and grandmothers filled plates with love and thrift, turning everyday pantry staples into a treat worth remembering. Cucumber mint sandwich offered a cooling relief on warm afternoons when kitchens grew hot, and air conditioning was a distant dream. Thin slices of freshly peeled cucumber were layered on buttered bread, along with finely chopped mint leaves, creating a sandwich that felt both elegant and refreshing. Popular at garden parties and bridal teas of the 1920s and 1930s, it became a symbol of easy hospitality. The subtle crunch of cucumber mixed with the fragrant mint made each bite feel crisp and light. Butter acted as a seal, keeping the bread from growing soggy during long outdoor events. Hosts often chilled the sandwiches before serving, so the flavors would meld and the texture remain firm, though simple. This sandwich carried a quiet sophistication that appealed to anyone seeking a brief escape from heavier fare. And even today, its delicate balance of herb and vegetable stands as a reminder that elegance often comes from the simplest ingredients handled with care and intention. Cabbage and sausage fry-up offered big flavor and a full stomach with almost no preparation. Pre-cooked sausage slices hit the skillet first, releasing fat and spice that would season everything to come. Thin shreds of green cabbage followed, sizzling as they met the hot pan and softening into tender ribbons that soaked up the sausage drippings. A splash of vinegar or a pinch of red pepper flakes brightened the dish, while a quick toss brought everything together in less than 10 minutes. The combination of smoky meat and sweet cabbage made each bite taste richer than its humble ingredients suggested. Served alone or with a slice of bread, it filled plates and satisfied appetites without straining the grocery budget. Working families valued the ease, but they also loved the hearty, old-world flavor that reminded them of meals once cooked slowly, now captured in minutes.
Here's a trend that was really popular throughout the 1960s that we haven't talked much about. Guess again, carrots were a part of the entire movement surrounding glazed vegetables. I'll put it plainly, vegetables do not make for an exciting meal. I'm sorry, I know that sounds like it's a hill someone with the taste buds of a 12-year-old would die on, but it's just not the most exciting thing to order. That was mostly because a lot of vegetable recipes didn't go beyond ever baking them or using them as a side though. Once people found new ways to incorporate vegetables into their diet, like glazing them, they realized how good they could be. Particularly turnips were really helpful in shattering this image. Glazed turnips were one of the most common Depression-era meals. Now the next thing, why the name Guess Again? It's because despite how you associate carrots with a slightly earthy and planty taste, this first bite is actually the opposite. It's really sweet, and it's packed with an amount of flavor you'd never associate with a carrot. It got really popular, not just as a side, but as a standalone veggie dish as well.
Oysters Rockefeller consists of succulent oysters on the half shell, topped with a rich buttery mixture of finely chopped herbs and breadcrumbs, then baked or broiled until golden. Originating in 1899 at Antoine's in New Orleans, one of America's historic restaurants, the dish's exact recipe remains a secret but typically includes spinach, celery, and sometimes an anise-flavored liqueur, creating a luxurious topping. The oysters are gently poached in their shells to retain moisture, then crowned with this seasoned blend. After assembling, they are broiled until the topping bubbles and browns slightly, offering a delightful contrast in textures between the creamy, tender oyster and the crisp, flavorful topping. Oysters Rockefeller is not only a treat for the palate, but also a creative celebration of local ingredients, elevating the simple oyster to a decadent culinary experience. Skillet hot dogs with onions and peppers brought the flavor of a street cart into the kitchen without the need for a grill. Hot dogs were scored and browned in a cast-iron pan, while sliced onions and bell peppers sautéed beside them in a little butter and salt. The vegetables softened and caramelized, releasing a sweetness that mingled with the smoky scent of the searing meat. Split rolls were toasted directly in the same pan to catch every bit of flavor. In less than 10 minutes, the hot dogs were nestled into the warm bread and piled high with the pepper and onion mixture, a quick dinner that felt indulgent and hearty. Families loved the one-pan cleanup and the way the dish fed a group with minimal effort. Each bite carried the taste of summer fairs and city sidewalks, proving that even a humble hot dog can become a meal worth remembering when time is short and hunger is strong. Quick brown butter popcorn transformed an everyday snack into something worthy of a special church outing. Fresh popcorn was popped in a heavy stovetop pan until every kernel burst into a fluffy cloud. Meanwhile, butter was melted slowly until it turned a deep, nutty brown, releasing an aroma that drew children and adults alike to the kitchen door. The hot popcorn was tossed in the fragrant butter and dusted with a generous spoon of sugar, which caramelized slightly on the warm kernels, coating them in a delicate sweet crust. Some cooks added a pinch of salt to sharpen the flavor, while others relied solely on the natural sweetness of the brown butter. Served in paper cones or simple bowls, it filled the air with a rich, toasty scent that mingled with the smoke of outdoor grills and the sound of gospel singing. This treat required only a few ingredients and a few minutes, yet it felt indulgent and festive, reminding everyone that a little care in the kitchen could elevate even the most ordinary pantry staples into something worth sharing under the open sky of a summer picnic afternoon. Green pepper and cheese sandwich brought a satisfying crunch to the simple lunch plates of mid-century. America raw green pepper rings were layered onto slices of buttered bread and topped with a generous spread of sharp cheese. The contrast of crisp vegetables and creamy dairy created a refreshing combination that was both affordable and filling families appreciated. How garden peppers stayed fresh for days, without refrigeration, making them a dependable choice for school lunches and quick suppers. This sandwich appeared in community cookbooks of the 1940s, where homemakers shared recipes that stretched ingredients during rationing efforts. Farmers enjoyed it during the harvest season when peppers were abundant and inexpensive, while children found the bright color and mild spice exciting. Compared to plainer fare, its straightforward preparation required no cooking, which made it perfect for hot summer evenings, when turning on the stove was unthinkable. Even though it has faded from modern menus, the green pepper and cheese sandwich remains a crisp reminder of resourceful American home cooking. Ham and cheese biscuit sandwiches turned leftovers into a satisfying handheld meal that tasted like a weekend treat even on the busiest night. Flaky biscuits baked from a can or quickly mixed from scratch rose high in the oven while slices of baked ham warmed in a skillet. As soon as the biscuits were golden, they were split open and layered with the savory ham and slices of sharp cheddar or mild American cheese. A few minutes back in the warm oven melted the cheese into a gooey blanket that glued everything together. The salty ham, buttery biscuit, and rich cheese made a perfect combination that required no side dish and no long wait. For families coming home late, this sandwich was both supper and comfort, a way to turn yesterday's roast into tonight's fast feast. Children grabbed them hot from the tray, and the memory of that warm bite remains an echo of efficiency and home-style pleasure.
So we've never really delved into a lot of Russian cooking. Granted, there's not a lot to speak of, at least not in comparison to other regions. Still, one dish that's really worth talking about is ukha, Russian fish soup. This really changes region to region because the kind of fish that you can get for your catches of the day makes a different soup each time. Typically, though, most traditional recipes call for a lot of perch, carp, and cod. These recipes all have one thing in common. They fillet the fish and cook it on the bone. Ukha is typically made in a clear broth alongside those fish, and the heads, tails, and bones really help to add flavor. The next layer in its profile comes from all the aromatics. You have carrots, onions, and parsley roots, as well as just a little bit of black peppercorns and dill. So far, we have a lot of ingredients that might be a little unfamiliar to you, but this one takes the cake. Have you ever heard of vodka with your soup? Me neither, but leave it to the Russians and the French to find a way to mix every kind of alcohol into food.
Cornish game hen, a petite and elegant poultry choice, typically weighs no more than 2 pounds and is ideal for serving as an individual portion, making it perfect for an upscale dinner. These hens are usually roasted whole, seasoned lightly with herbs like thyme and sage, and basted in butter to achieve a crispy golden skin while keeping the meat juicy and tender. The cavity may be stuffed with a flavorful blend of breadcrumbs, chopped vegetables, and herbs, enriching the meat during cooking. The cooking process often involves high-temperature roasting to crisp the skin, followed by a resting period before serving to ensure the meat remains moist. Serving Cornish game hens on a bed of wild rice or alongside roasted vegetables allows their delicate flavors to shine, making them a favored choice for intimate dining and special occasions due to their ideal portion size and visually appealing presentation. Steak tips with garlic butter turned small pieces of beef into a dinner that tasted far more luxurious than the clock allowed. Bite-sized cubes of steak were seasoned with salt and pepper, then seared quickly in a smoking hot skillet until browned on the outside and just tender within. As the meat rested for a moment, butter melted in the pan with minced garlic and a handful of fresh parsley, creating a sauce that smelled like a steakhouse. The sizzling butter was poured back over the meat, coating every piece in rich, garlicky flavor. Served over toast, rice, or even plain with a side of vegetables, the dish offered restaurant-style indulgence in the time it took to set the table. Families loved how a modest amount of beef could feel like a feast, and the sound of butter hitting the hot pan became a signal that the day's work was over and something delicious was ready. Frosted pineapple rings were the kind of cheerful dish that caught every eye on a church picnic table in the 1960s. Thick, golden slices of canned pineapple were drained and patted dry before being chilled on a wide platter. A creamy mixture of softened cream cheese whipped with powdered sugar and a drop of vanilla was then piped or spooned into the center of each ring, forming a snowy crown that contrasted beautifully with the bright fruit. Some cooks added a cherry on top for a pop of red, while others sprinkled finely chopped pecans to give a delicate crunch. The sweet-tart pineapple paired perfectly with the tangy cream cheese, making each bite a refreshing balance of flavors. Because the ingredients were inexpensive and easy to find year-round, these rings became a reliable favorite for large gatherings. They held up well in the summer heat and stayed cool inside picnic baskets packed with ice, offering a sweet treat that required no baking and almost no time. Guests often reached for them first, drawn by their glossy shine and promise of bright tropical flavor amid a spread of hearty casseroles and smoky barbecue. It was a simple dessert that tasted like sunshine and fellowship. Corned beef and coleslaw sandwich was a satisfying precursor to the modern Reuben, combining sliced corned beef with a mound of creamy, tangy coleslaw between sturdy rye bread for a lunch that was both hearty and refreshing. Jewish delis in New York and other cities popularized it during the 1920s-40s when customers wanted generous portions without a high price. The savory saltiness of the beef paired perfectly with the crisp cabbage and light dressing of the slaw, creating a balance that pleased both workers on quick lunch breaks and families seeking an easy dinner. It was less heavy than today's melted cheese versions, but every bit as flavorful, easy to prepare in advance. It held up well for picnics or train journeys, making it a practical choice for travelers over time. The Reuben with Swiss cheese and dressing overshadowed this simpler cousin, but the corned beef and coleslaw sandwich still represents an era of straightforward deli fare that deserves to be remembered and enjoyed again. Beef and onion sandwich spread proved that deli leftovers could turn into a hearty supper in almost no time. Thin slices of roast beef, whether from a weekend dinner or the grocery counter, were chopped fine and folded into a bowl of mayonnaise and diced onions. A splash of Worcestershire sauce and a pinch of black pepper added depth, while the onions provided crunch and a sharp bite. The mixture chilled for just a few minutes while bread toasted and plates were set. Then it was piled thick between slices of rye or soft white sandwich bread. Some families liked a layer of crisp lettuce for freshness, while others spooned the spread onto crackers for an easy snack that still felt like a meal. It stretched a small amount of beef into several servings, saving both time and money while still tasting indulgent. Each bite combined creamy texture with savory meat and a gentle onion heat, the kind of simple pleasure that keeps everyone coming back for seconds. Quick to make, rich to eat, this spread turned odds and ends into a dinner worth remembering, proving that thrift and flavor can happily share the same table.
There was another trend that was pretty much unique to the middle of the 20th century, which was a turning point for a lot of things. Chicken salad pie was one of the examples of how America was really trying to take its commitment to healthy eating just a bit more seriously for once. You'll notice that every time the status quo tries to change to something else in America with regard to food, it always has to start off with something familiar, Like, for example, chicken salad pie does involve a salad, but it gives it to you in the form of a pie, which is infinitely familiar. Pineapples have to be served on pizza and with ham for them to be noticed. And even then, the discourse on whether or not it's food blasphemy never stops. This chilled salad was just as divisive, with a lot of people thinking that salads have no place in pies. Chicken salads have been around as early as the 20th century, though, and it doesn't seem like they have any intention of leaving. This pie was an everyday meal you could make and also use as an excuse to get just a few more greens into your family's diet, which is something Americans really could use a lot more of.
Peach chicken became popular in the 1970s, aligning with an American trend of integrating fruit into savory dishes. This recipe combines the natural sweetness of peaches with the savory depth of chicken, creating a delightful contrast. Browned chicken pieces are simmered with fresh or canned peaches, with ginger and cinnamon adding a layer of spice that complements the sweetness. Additional peach preserves or syrup can be added to enrich the sauce, deepening the dish's flavor profile. A splash of bourbon or brandy is sometimes included, lending a smoky nuance. The sauce is typically thickened with a cornstarch slurry, producing a glossy finish that adheres beautifully to the chicken. This dish illustrates the versatility of chicken as a canvas for flavor, adeptly marrying the sweet with the savory in a uniquely American culinary experiment. Tomato aspic sandwich brought a dramatic look to the table with bright red gelled tomato slices set carefully on buttered toast triangles. For a combination that was cool, tangy, and visually striking, the savory aspic carried the essence of ripe tomatoes, mixed with a gentle seasoning of celery salt and lemon juice, creating a delicate flavor that surprised first-time tasters, popular at mid-century luncheons and cocktail parties. It offered a sophisticated alternative to heavier meats and cheeses, and could be prepared a day ahead to free hosts from last-minute work. Guests admired the jewel-like appearance and refreshing bite, especially during warm weather gatherings. While tomato aspic has mostly disappeared from modern menus, it remains a testament to the creativity of cooks who turned basic vegetable juice and gelatin into a centerpiece sandwich, proving that presentation and taste can be achieved with modest ingredients and a touch of patience. Graham cracker icebox eclairs offered cool, creamy comfort without a minute near the oven. Layers of crisp graham crackers alternated with thick vanilla pudding in a deep dish, each layer absorbing flavor as the dessert rested in the refrigerator until perfectly set. A shiny chocolate glaze poured over the top created a beautiful finish that sliced neatly into cake-like squares, soft and luscious even on the warmest afternoon. The crackers mellowed to a tender texture that mimicked the pastry of a classic eclair, while the pudding stayed rich and smooth. Because it could be prepared the day before, it became a dependable favorite for busy church cooks juggling multiple dishes and hungry guests. Children loved the glossy chocolate topping, and adults appreciated the nostalgia in every bite. Each cool slice carried the taste of thoughtful planning and shared tradition, ending the picnic on a sweet note that encouraged everyone to linger a little longer beneath the shade trees after the last hymn faded. Macaroni with butter and black pepper offered pure comfort with almost no effort, turning a handful of pantry staples into a bowl of creamy warmth. Elbow macaroni boiled quickly in salted water while butter melted in a waiting pot. The drained pasta was tossed directly into the melted butter, and a heavy shower of freshly ground black pepper coated each piece, releasing a fragrant spice that filled the room. A small scoop of grated Parmesan, if available, added a gentle richness, but even without it, the dish delivered deep satisfaction. Ready in less than 15 minutes, it soothed the end of a long day with its silky texture and simple flavor. Children loved the mild, buttery taste, while adults appreciated the subtle heat of the pepper and the reminder that good food does not always demand a complex recipe. This humble meal has endured for generations because it proves that speed, thrift, and pleasure can happily share the same pot when hunger calls for something immediate and comforting. Breakfast for dinner. Pancake stack with bacon turned a morning favorite into a fun and filling evening meal. Flour, milk, eggs, and a little baking powder whisked together quickly to form a smooth batter that poured onto a sizzling griddle, sending up a sweet, buttery aroma. Each pancake bubbled and browned in just minutes, ready to stack high while crisp bacon strips cooked in a nearby skillet. The smoky scent of bacon mingled with the warm fragrance of fresh pancakes, creating a kitchen atmosphere both cozy and exciting. Butter melted between layers, while a slow drizzle of warm maple syrup cascaded over the stack, soaking each fluffy round. The salty bacon provided the perfect counterpoint to the soft, sweet pancakes, making every bite a blend of textures and tastes. Families loved the playful switch of serving breakfast at the end of the day, and cleanup was minimal, leaving more time to relax. In less than 20 minutes, this meal offered pure comfort and a gentle reminder that the best dinners are sometimes the ones that break the rules in the most delicious way possible.
Surf and turf is a seafood and ground meat combination that really took the competition by storm in most coastal regions. It's not exactly a specific dish or recipe, but a style of dishes that have a massive focus on combining things like lobster and steak. Basically, if you're a meat lover of all kinds, this is the dish for you. Where did the surf and turf name come from then? This was pretty much just slang of the times. It was used to refer to bougie dining places and big events with their exotic catering needs. It was also supposed to represent the two core components of the dish. You had your seafood, the surf, and then you had your meats, the turf. Genius, I know. If you ever needed a knockout menu for a wedding or a big dinner, then you'd go for surf and turf places. So surf and turf isn't exactly its own genre of food either. It just refers to anything that puts seafood and red-white meat together. Lots of people think that the dish first came to life in North America, but a lot of people also think it was made in the West Coast. No one can really say who the first person was to do it. It was pretty common to serve this dish with comforting sides like asparagus and beans or mashed potatoes. A lot of places would use béarnaise sauces too.
Sole meunière is an exemplary dish that highlights the inherent flavors of its primary ingredient through a simple yet precise preparation method. This dish involves a sole fillet, lightly dusted with flour, then pan-fried in butter to a perfect golden brown. After cooking, the fillet is enhanced with a sauce of the pan's browned butter, fresh lemon juice, and chopped parsley, drizzled over the fish to amplify its delicate, sweet taste. The freshness and quality of the sole are crucial. Ideally, the fish is prepared soon after being caught, underscoring the importance of ingredient freshness in French culinary arts. The preparation focuses on preserving the fish's natural flavors, complemented subtly by the nutty browned butter and the bright lemon juice. Choosing sole, a flat fish valued for its fine texture and mild flavor, is vital as it cooks quickly and uniformly, making sole meunière a revered dish for its elegant simplicity. Cornbread and pinto beans bowl turned leftover staples into a 10-minute dinner that warmed both stomach and spirit. Cold cornbread from the previous night was crumbled into wide bowls while a pot of pre-cooked pinto beans reheated on the stove with a splash of water and a pinch of chili powder. As the beans bubbled, their smoky scent filled the air, carrying memories of long simmering meals that once took hours. The hot beans were ladled over the cornbread, their broth soaking into every crumb until the bowl became a soft, savory stew. A drizzle of hot sauce or a spoonful of chopped onions added brightness, though many enjoyed it plain, letting the natural flavor of the beans and the sweet cornmeal shine. It was a dish of pure practicality, stretching yesterday's work into today's dinner without a single complaint. Quick to prepare and impossible to tire of, this simple bowl proved that good food is often nothing more than humble ingredients handled with care and eaten with gratitude. Apricot cottage cheese loaf offered a cool and creamy surprise that stood out among the many church picnic dishes of the 1960s. Slices of soft white bread were spread with a light mixture of whipped cottage cheese blended until smooth with a dash of sugar and a few drops of lemon for brightness. Sweet canned apricots were drained carefully, then chopped into small pieces and folded into the cheese to add a gentle fruitiness. Each slice was rolled tightly into a neat spiral, then wrapped in wax paper and chilled until firm. When unwrapped at the picnic, the loaf revealed beautiful golden swirls against the snowy filling, and each piece sliced cleanly without losing its shape. The taste balanced mild, tangy cheese with the soft sweetness of apricot, creating a refreshing bite that was neither too heavy nor too sweet for a summer afternoon. It traveled well in coolers packed with ice, making it a practical choice for long drives to countryside gatherings where families sang hymns and shared stories beneath tall oak trees. Children loved the bright colors, while adults enjoyed how this loaf brought a touch of elegance to the long wooden tables filled with beloved recipes passed from generation to generation. Sardine and onion sandwich offered a bold oceanic flavor that thrived during an era when tinned fish was an affordable source of protein. Families opened small cans of sardines packed in oil and layered them over slices of hearty brown bread, adding thin rounds of raw onion for a pungent bite. Coastal communities embraced this sandwich for its convenience, while inland households appreciated the long shelf life of preserved fish. The natural oils soaked into the bread, creating a rich texture that required no additional spread. Fishermen often carried it as a portable meal that could withstand long hours at sea, while factory workers found it a quick and sustaining lunch. Despite its strong aroma, it became a beloved staple in many immigrant neighborhoods where similar flavors were common. The pairing of briny fish and sharp onion may seem intense today, but it represents the straightforward, hearty meals that once defined American working-class kitchens. Fish stick. Po' boy brought a taste of the Gulf Coast to busy kitchens using only what sat in the freezer. Packaged fish sticks baked or pan-fried until their coating turned golden and crunchy, while soft sandwich rolls warmed in the oven. Tartar sauce was stirred together with chopped pickles, a squeeze of lemon, and a little mustard, filling the kitchen with a tangy scent. Shredded lettuce and thin tomato slices waited on the counter, ready to add freshness and color. As soon as the fish sticks finished, they were stacked inside the rolls, drizzled with the cool sauce, and topped with the crisp vegetables. The contrast of hot, flaky fish and chilled toppings tasted like a seaside lunch, even on a weeknight far from the water. In less than 15 minutes, a handful of inexpensive ingredients became a meal that felt special, making families forget how quickly it came together. Every crunchy bite delivered the carefree feeling of a coastal vacation without leaving the house, a reminder that a freezer staple can still capture the spirit of a faraway kitchen when imagination and hunger meet.
Speaking of massive meals, chicken and wild rice casserole is a pretty good example. This is something that you typically see all over North America if you ever went, particularly in areas with a large Native American presence. It's because wild rice is such a big piece of their culture. It's known as manumin in Ojibwe, and it's pretty well known around the Great Lakes. Fun fact, they used to harvest wild rice by hand. Eventually, European settlers made it a mainstream part of people's diets, but that was in the 18th and 19th centuries. There were lots of reasons to be eating wild rice. It was nutritious, it was filling and affordable, and it worked really well with casseroles thanks to its inherently nutty notes. You have to understand one thing about the 60s and 50s as well. They were the first decades Americans had since the start of 1910 and the beginning and middle points of the 1920s. After that, it was just recession this, war that. People got really tired, and half the country was rediscovering their culinary spark, while the other half had sworn to pig out for the foreseeable future. And honestly, who could blame them?
Anchovy butter steaks are a bold culinary creation, blending the umami depth of anchovies with the rich flavors of succulent steak. Popularized in mid-20th century America, this dish caters to those who appreciate daring flavor combinations. The steak, usually a marbled ribeye or sirloin, is seasoned simply and seared to perfection. The anchovy butter, a mixture of softened butter, finely minced anchovies, garlic, and occasionally a hint of lemon zest or herbs, is then slathered over the hot steak. This compound butter melts into the steak, infusing it with salty and intense anchovy flavors that enhance the natural beefiness. Here, the assertive flavor of anchovies perfectly accentuates the steak's luxurious richness, crafting a dining experience rich in both taste and elegance. Breakfast for dinner. Pancake stack with bacon turned a morning favorite into a fun and filling evening meal. Flour, milk, eggs, and a little baking powder whisked together quickly to form a smooth batter that poured onto a sizzling griddle, sending up a sweet, buttery aroma. Each pancake bubbled and browned in just minutes, ready to stack high while crisp bacon strips cooked in a nearby skillet. The smoky scent of bacon mingled with the warm fragrance of fresh pancakes, creating a kitchen atmosphere both cozy and exciting. Butter melted between layers, while a slow drizzle of warm maple syrup cascaded over the stack, soaking each fluffy round. The salty bacon provided the perfect counterpoint to the soft, sweet pancakes, making every bite a blend of textures and tastes. Families loved the playful switch of serving breakfast at the end of the day, and cleanup was minimal, leaving more time to relax. In less than 20 minutes, this meal offered pure comfort and a gentle reminder that the best dinners are sometimes the ones that break the rules in the most delicious way possible. Prune and walnut pinwheels combined natural sweetness with hearty texture in a cookie that seemed far fancier than its humble origins. Pitted prunes were simmered briefly and mashed into a smooth paste, sweetened with a touch of honey and a splash of lemon juice. Chopped walnuts were stirred in for a pleasant crunch. This filling was spread across a sheet of tender pastry dough which was rolled tightly into a log and chilled until firm. Slices were cut into neat spirals and baked until golden brown, filling the air with a warm, fruity aroma. The finished pinwheels offered a balance of rich nuts and mellow fruit that paired beautifully with coffee or sweet tea. They packed well in tins lined with wax paper and stayed moist even after a day in the summer heat. Elders appreciated their old-world flavor, while younger guests enjoyed the pretty swirls and chewy bite. These cookies represented the care and creativity of home bakers who turned simple dried fruit and pantry staples into something elegant enough for any church gathering. Chicken salad with grape sandwich became a tea room favorite, where tender diced chicken mixed with creamy mayonnaise and halved grapes for a touch of natural sweetness and elegant contrast. The juicy grapes brightened the savory chicken, while chopped celery often added crunch, making the sandwich both refreshing and hearty. Women's magazines of the 1940s and 50s showcased it as the perfect luncheon choice for bridal showers and Sunday gatherings, using leftover roast chicken kept it economical. While grapes lent a touch of luxury, families loved how easily it could be made ahead and served, chilled on soft rolls or delicate finger sandwich slices. Even children enjoyed the gentle sweetness which balanced the richness of the mayonnaise as fashions shifted toward simpler deli meats. This refined combination faded from everyday menus, but it remains a timeless reminder of mid-century hospitality and the way a few well-chosen ingredients could elevate a simple sandwich into a meal that felt special without being extravagant. Skillet hot dogs with onions and peppers brought the flavor of a street cart into the kitchen without the need for a grill. Hot dogs were scored and browned in a cast-iron pan, while sliced onions and bell peppers sautéed beside them in a little butter and salt. The vegetables softened and caramelized, releasing a sweetness that mingled with the smoky scent of the searing meat. Split rolls were toasted directly in the same pan to catch every bit of flavor. In less than 10 minutes, the hot dogs were nestled into the warm bread and piled high with the pepper and onion mixture, a quick dinner that felt indulgent and hearty. Families loved the one-pan cleanup and the way the dish fed a group with minimal effort. Each bite carried the taste of summer fairs and city sidewalks, proving that even a humble hot dog can become a meal worth remembering when time is short and hunger is strong.
Mushroom and leek salad is an old recipe that we can thank Europeans for. It's something that's always been really prominent in the many French, British, and Italian communities that are present in America. If you take a closer look at French culture, like a lot of Americans were doing during this point of the 20th century, you'll find that they've always played around with these two ingredients. The mushroom and leek salad in America doesn't exactly stick to any one kind of way of making the salad. It's got a little bit of everything: flavor, warmth, and a beautiful mixture of mushrooms that quenches what your heart craves. The French way is to emphasize the earthiness of the mushrooms, while the European way makes better use of the leek and dresses it up with vinegar and herbs. The Italian way sort of does both, and the American variant of the salad has regional differences depending on which area has more of which community. Lexo vegetable stew is right out of the streets of Hungary and is honestly one of the best takes on a vegetable soup I've ever seen. You have the whole crew here: tomatoes, onions, paprika, sweet peppers, celery, and just about every other kind of vegetable you can imagine. I think we'd genuinely be superhuman if we ate this every day. It has a lot of similarities to dishes like shakshuka and Balkan stews, but the American adaptation is just a tad bit different, although surprisingly not too much. The biggest change that Americans made to the dish was honestly just using sausages, bacon, and other kinds of bits of meat to make it a bit more familiar. That and really thoroughly whisked eggs, although some die-hard Hungarians found it offensive. You would typically saute onions in lard and add the peppers and tomatoes, which were coated with paprika, into the soup. Then you just let it simmer until all of that wonderful stuff came together. While this obviously works wonderfully in the winters, it's also a great dish for the summers, where a lot of these vegetables end up being in season.
Tornados Rossini is an indulgent reflection of haute cuisine, named after the gourmet aficionado and renowned composer Gioacchino Rossini. Crafted by the legendary chef Auguste Escoffier in Paris, this dish features a medallion of beef tenderloin, cooked in butter and crowned with a slice of sumptuous foie gras. Resting on a crouton that soaks up the juices, the Tornados is lavished with a rich Madeira demi-glace that's infused with truffles and finished with butter, then garnished with fresh truffle slices. The preparation of this dish demands precision. The beef tenderloin seared to perfection, the foie gras just melting, and the sauce richly coating each component. Tornados Rossini not only showcases the luxury of its ingredients, but also the skill in combining them to deliver a dish that is as opulent in taste as it is in history. Cabbage and sausage fry-up offered big flavor and a full stomach with almost no preparation. Pre-cooked sausage slices hit the skillet first, releasing fat and spice that would season everything to come. Thin shreds of green cabbage followed, sizzling as they met the hot pan and softening into tender ribbons that soaked up the sausage drippings. A splash of vinegar or a pinch of red pepper flakes brightened the dish, while a quick toss brought everything together in less than 10 minutes. The combination of smoky meat and sweet cabbage made each bite taste richer than its humble ingredients suggested. Served alone or with a slice of bread, it filled plates and satisfied appetites without straining the grocery budget. Working families valued the ease, but they also loved the hearty, old-world flavor that reminded them of meals once cooked slowly, now captured in minutes. Long after the jars were empty, people remembered that simple blend of tangy dairy and golden cereal as proof that even breakfast could be turned into a festive drink for friends and family. Cottage cheese snowballs brought a cool touch of sweetness to tables already heavy with pies and cobblers. Soft cottage cheese was whipped with powdered sugar and a dash of vanilla until smooth, then rolled into bite-sized spheres that were chilled until firm. Each ball was rolled in a blanket of fine coconut flakes, transforming them into snowy little treats that glistened under the picnic shelter lights. Some cooks tucked a hidden cherry or pecan half inside for a surprise bite, while others left them pure and creamy. They required no baking, no stove, and barely any cleanup, making them ideal for busy church ladies preparing for a crowd. Children loved the way the coconut stuck to their fingers, and adults appreciated the not-too-sweet flavor that paired well with coffee or iced tea. Packed in wax paper-lined tins, the snowballs stayed cool for hours, even on hot afternoons, offering a refreshing finish after plates of fried chicken and potato salad. Each bite felt like a small celebration of simplicity, proof that a few humble ingredients could create a memorable dessert with both charm and comfort. Chutney and cheddar sandwich delivered a bold contrast of sweet and sharp flavors by layering thick mango chutney beneath slices of tangy cheddar on crusty bread. The chutney provided a spiced fruitiness that paired beautifully with the deep bite of aged cheese, creating a combination that felt adventurous yet comforting. Mid-century home cooks embraced this sandwich, as imported chutney became more accessible through specialty markets and women's magazines promoted it as an elegant option for luncheons or cocktail hours. It needed no extra garnish and could be served warm or cold. Depending on the occasion, guests were always surprised by how well the bright chutney balanced the dense cheddar, transforming a simple sandwich into something exciting. Though it eventually faded as global flavors became commonplace, the chutney and cheddar sandwich remains a delicious relic of a time when a single exotic jar could elevate an everyday meal. Shrimp and grits. Quick Bowl delivered coastal comfort with pantry convenience. turning pre-cooked shrimp and instant grits into a 10-minute feast. Water boiled while butter melted in a skillet, where garlic and a pinch of paprika released a smoky aroma. The shrimp, already cooked and cleaned, were tossed in the sizzling butter until warmed through and lightly seasoned with lemon juice. Instant grits whisked in another pot thickened in minutes, creamy and soft with a touch of salt. The hot grits were spooned into bowls and topped with the buttery shrimp and their flavorful drippings. A sprinkle of chopped green onions or parsley added a fresh finish. Despite the short cooking time, the dish tasted like a slow weekend brunch by the shore. Families loved how it brought a touch of luxury to a busy weeknight, proving that quick meals could still feel special and deeply satisfying when simple ingredients were treated with care and attention.
We're going to flip-flop between American ideas and French inspirations a lot in this list, so buckle up. Next up, we have beef Burgundy over noodles. This pretty much is ripped right out of the streets of Burgundy in France, and it's an offshoot of a classic and traditional French dish known as boeuf bourguignon. This was one of those high-end dishes you could order at upscale French restaurants meant to offer luxurious dining experiences. It wasn't really something you could make at home, but the taste was pretty irresistible. People definitely wanted more of it in their week-to-week eating plans, but they couldn't exactly keep up with the crater it was leaving in their wallets either. Well, one thing led to another, and a homemade version of it known as Burgundy over noodles came together. The dish used egg noodles instead of the traditional pastas that the French would use. It kept other things the same, such as using red wine to braise the beef. This recipe was common in cookbooks by Julia Child, who was also one of the few mainstream chefs who really vouched for this dish and tried to make it this nationwide hit. I think she pretty much achieved her goal there. You can find lots of references to this dish in cookbooks from the 60s, and I'm talking about the ones targeted at families like yours and mine.
Beef bourguignon is a cornerstone from Burgundy, involving marinated and slow-cooked beef chunks, typically tougher cuts like chuck, bathed in red wine, usually Burgundy, to tenderize the meat over several hours. This hearty stew is fortified with onions, garlic, and carrots, and enhanced with sautéed mushrooms and crisp lardons. Historically, this method likely evolved as a means to tenderize and enrich less desirable cuts of meat. The stew develops a rich, deep umami flavor from the Maillard reaction, which occurs as the beef browns, and the complex flavors intensify as the wine slowly melds with the herbs and vegetables. The slow cooking process not only enriches the stew's flavor, but also fills the kitchen with an inviting aromatic warmth, making beef bourguignon synonymous with comforting, rich French culinary tradition. Salisbury steak patties with gravy mix offered a hearty plate in minutes, transforming ground beef into something that tasted like a slow Sunday supper. Lean beef was seasoned with onion powder, garlic, and a splash of Worcestershire, then shaped into oval patties and seared in a skillet until crisp on the outside and juicy inside. While the meat browned, a packet of instant brown gravy whisked together with water created a smooth sauce in a separate pan. Once the patties were done, they were nestled into the bubbling gravy for a final simmer that coated them in rich flavor. Served over mashed potatoes or buttered toast, the meal felt far more elaborate than the clock revealed. Working parents loved the speed and the hearty comfort, while children scooped up every drop of gravy with the last crust of bread. It was a dinner that turned a simple pound of beef into something warm, filling, and memorable, the kind of dish that proves convenience and care can live on the same plate. Coffee jelly. Sunday delivered a grown-up treat for those who wanted a gentle jolt of flavor between hymns and stories. Strong black coffee was brewed early in the morning, then sweetened just enough before gelatin was dissolved into the hot liquid and poured into glass dishes to set. By the time the picnic crowd gathered, the coffee had transformed into a smooth, shimmering jelly that held its shape when scooped. Cubes of the chilled jelly were spooned into tall cups and topped with a splash of cold evaporated milk, which added creamy richness without overwhelming the deep roasted flavor. Some cooks dusted the top with a hint of cocoa powder while others left it pure and simple, allowing the bittersweet coffee to shine. Adults savored each spoonful, slowly enjoying the cool texture on a hot day, while children sometimes traded tastes for slices of cake or pie. The dessert was elegant in its restraint and surprisingly refreshing when eaten under the shade of churchyard trees while gospel music floated through the warm afternoon air. Date and orange marmalade sandwich combined the deep caramel sweetness of cooked dates with the bright citrus zing of orange marmalade to create a filling that tasted like sunshine captured between two slices of wheat bread. Home cooks discovered it through women's magazines in the 1940s when sugar shortages made dates a practical, natural sweetener. The marmalade added a fragrant bitterness that balanced the richness of the dates, turning each bite into a layered experience of sweet tart and slightly bitter flavors, often served at afternoon teas and bridal showers. The sandwich brought a touch of elegance without expensive ingredients. Its vibrant color and unique taste impressed guests who expected plain fare, but instead found something sophisticated. It kept well without refrigeration, which made it ideal for picnics and train journeys. Though rarely seen today, the date and orange marmalade sandwich remains a reminder of a time when simple pantry staples could become a striking treat worthy of any gathering. Minute steak with onion gravy delivered the taste of a slow Sunday supper in a fraction of the time. Ultra-thin beef steaks hit a hot skillet and browned within moments, releasing a rich aroma as they seared. After the meat was set aside, sliced onions cooked in the drippings until they softened and turned sweet. Then a splash of beef broth and a dusting of flour transformed the pan juices into a smooth, savory gravy. The steaks returned to the pan for a brief simmer, soaking up the onion-infused sauce. Served with buttered toast or a mound of mashed potatoes, the dish tasted like comfort that had taken all afternoon, even though it was ready in less than 20 minutes. Families appreciated its hearty flavor and quick cleanup, while the fragrant gravy made the kitchen smell welcoming and warm. Each forkful combined tender beef and silky onions, a reminder that a satisfying meal does not require hours of preparation when technique and simple ingredients come together perfectly.
Sheet pan paprika chicken and veggies were a pretty explosive dish that got popular for a number of things. Everyone likes a team player, don't they? Something that suits a lot of people. This was exactly one of those things. You have here a dish that's easy to make since it uses basic vegetables, is a one-pan meal, and uses boneless breasts. Then you have something that basically has no skill ceiling. You don't need to be a pretty good cook or a sauté master to really make this work. Know how to roast? You're good to go. Then you need some basic seasonings like paprika, and everyone knows their way around potatoes and carrots. All together, you end up having a wonderfully simple dish that takes paprika and reminds people why it's such a top dog in the spice world. It's something that blends European influences alongside typical American seasonings and makes them work extremely well. And people honestly love it for that. This kind of meal worked really well with the way job culture was changing in America. People were finding themselves working longer shifts and more hours than ever before. One-pan meals where most ingredients were made well in one pan got really popular. Little meal prep, and you could often just make them in advance too.
Lamb shanks epitomize the rich flavors and tender textures celebrated in Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cuisines. Prized for their gelatin-rich connective tissue, lamb shanks transform through slow cooking into melt-in-your-mouth tenderness. The preparation starts with searing the shanks to a golden brown, locking in flavors through caramelization, then braising them slowly in a mix of wine, stock, and aromatics like onions, carrots, and celery, enhanced with herbs such as rosemary and thyme. This method not only tenderizes the meat, but also infuses it with a robust blend of flavors. Typically, the dish is finished with a sprinkle of gremolata, adding a fresh burst of lemon, garlic, and parsley that cuts through the richness. The braised liquid serves as a deeply flavored sauce, reduced to intensify its taste, complementing the richness of the lamb with a perfect balance of flavors. Beef and onion sandwich spread proved that deli leftovers could turn into a hearty supper in almost no time. Thin slices of roast beef, whether from a weekend dinner or the grocery counter, were chopped fine and folded into a bowl of mayonnaise and diced onions. A splash of Worcestershire sauce and a pinch of black pepper added depth, while the onions provided crunch and a sharp bite. The mixture chilled for just a few minutes while bread toasted and plates were set, Then it was piled thick between slices of rye or soft white sandwich bread. Some families liked a layer of crisp lettuce for freshness, while others spooned the spread onto crackers for an easy snack that still felt like a meal. It stretched a small amount of beef into several servings, saving both time and money while still tasting indulgent. Each bite combined creamy texture with savory meat and a gentle onion heat, the kind of simple pleasure that keeps everyone coming back for seconds. Quick to make, rich to eat, this spread turned odds and ends into a dinner worth remembering, proving that thrift and flavor can happily share the same table. Even the simplest recipe could bring joy to a crowd gathered in faith and friendship. Bologna and grape jelly bites were a playful mix of sweet and savory that often surprised newcomers but quickly won them over. Thin slices of bologna were spread lightly with grape jelly rolled into tight spirals and secured with wooden toothpicks. The salty meat paired unexpectedly well with the fruity sweetness, creating a bite that was both nostalgic and exciting. These little rolls were easy to make in large batches and packed neatly into tins for travel. Children were especially drawn to their shiny purple centers and fun presentation, while adults found the combination oddly addictive once they gave it a try. They fit perfectly alongside other finger foods like deviled eggs and cheese cubes, and brought a flash of color to the buffet table. This dish captured the resourceful nature of home cooks who blended humble ingredients into something festive and memorable that sparked conversation long after the last hymn faded across the sunny churchyard. Prune Whip Sandwich transformed the humble prune into a sweet, airy delight by folding a smooth prune puree into lightly whipped cream before spreading it between thin slices of delicate white bread. The result was a soft filling with a gentle caramel flavor that felt both light and indulgent. Mid-century hostesses served it at afternoon teas and bridal showers, where guests appreciated its unexpected sweetness and refined texture. Prunes were valued during the 1940s for their natural sugar content and long shelf life, making this sandwich both economical and appealing to health-conscious families. A dusting of powdered sugar or a hint of vanilla was sometimes added, but the essential charm lay in the simple combination of fruit and cream. Though forgotten by most modern bakers, the Prune Whip Sandwich remains a charming reminder of a time when creative pairings turned pantry staples into elegant treats fit for even the most graceful gatherings and celebrations.
Another casserole that's really worth discussing is the old school squash casserole. This is just a Southern classic through and through. Yellow summer squash is the star of the show here, after all. A little context if you'd listen. Yellow summer squash has been a native of many Southern gardens for decades and even centuries now. It was something that Native Americans first started cultivating, and it was a part of this trifecta they had known as the Three Sisters method of planting. Basically, they'd take this squash and plant it alongside beans and corn. The climate there made it ideal for it, and lots of recipes were born as a result of this squash. We already went over how easy it became to make casseroles thanks to all the canned food in grocery stores. But squash was one of the things you still needed to rely on farmers for. There were canned variants, but the dish would really shine if you got fresh squash from a local garden. Next, you have your eggs and cheddar or Parmesan cheese. Then, just a little bit of zucchini rounds the dish off, with breadcrumbs on the top for a bit of crunch and garnish. Luckily, this dish is pretty healthy too, so it passes most criteria people have for what should be a regular part of your diet.
Chicken Marengo holds a storied place in culinary history, famously prepared for Napoleon after the Battle of Marengo. This dish encapsulates the essence of victorious improvisation using local ingredients available at the time. Chicken Marengo starts with chicken pieces sautéed in olive oil, braised with onions, garlic, and tomatoes, enriched by a splash of white wine that deglazes the pan, forming a robust sauce. Later additions often include mushrooms, and traditionally, it was garnished with fried eggs and crayfish, though these are less common today. The slow simmering melds all the flavors beautifully, allowing the tomatoes to break down and create a rich, savory sauce that complements the tender chicken perfectly. This dish exemplifies French provincial cooking, utilizing straightforward techniques and local ingredients to produce a dish rich in history and flavor. Pork chop sandwiches gave thin-cut chops a starring role in a dinner that felt hearty yet required little effort. Lightly seasoned pork chops hit a hot skillet and browned in minutes, their edges turning crisp while the meat stayed juicy inside. Soft sandwich buns toasted nearby, ready to cradle the sizzling chops as soon as they were done. Some families added pickles or a smear of mustard for tang, while others kept it simple, letting the rich flavor of the pork shine on its own. The entire meal came together before the evening news finished its first story, a perfect option for nights when work ran late. Each bite balanced the tender meat with the soft bread, creating a combination that was both rustic and satisfying. Affordable and fast, these sandwiches showed that even a modest cut of meat could deliver the comfort of a full supper without hours in the kitchen, keeping hunger at bay and spirits high. Maple-flavored sweet potato cakes filled the air with the scent of warm syrup and earthy roots. Instant mashed sweet potatoes were combined with a splash of milk, a dusting of cinnamon, and a drizzle of maple flavoring to form a smooth batter. Small scoops of this mixture were dropped onto a hot griddle and flattened gently with the back of a spoon. Within minutes, the cakes developed a golden crust while remaining tender inside. A quick brush of melted butter and a second drizzle of maple syrup created a glistening glaze that caught the afternoon sunlight. These cakes were hearty enough to serve as a main dish or as a sweet side alongside fried chicken and collard greens. Children loved their pancake-like texture, and adults appreciated how fast and affordable they were to make. They proved that even instant ingredients could become something special when guided by skilled hands and a desire to nourish a community gathered in faith and fellowship beneath the wide blue sky of a summer afternoon. Orange Cream Sandwich brought a gentle dessert-like sweetness to the lunch table by blending fresh orange zest and juice with softened cream cheese until the filling became light, fragrant, and smooth spread between thin slices of white bread. It offered a citrus burst that brightened afternoon teas and school lunches alike. Families loved its refreshing flavor during warm weather and appreciated how quickly it could be prepared using only basic ingredients. Women's magazines of the 1940s praised it as a way to add variety to children's meals without extra cost, while adults enjoyed it as a simple treat. After a light supper, its cheerful color and delicate aroma made it a favorite for spring gatherings, and it often appeared alongside lemonade and sponge cake on picnic blankets. Although it has largely disappeared from modern kitchens, the Orange Cream Sandwich stands as a testament to the creativity of home cooks who could transform everyday fruit and dairy into something quietly delightful and memorable.
Poppy seed chicken was a byproduct of all the madness around casseroles that dominated so much of the 1960s. After the Second World War, there was such a big increase in the production and popularity of canned food. People couldn't deny the sheer value it had, and a lot of canned food meant that casseroles were easier than ever to make. The 1960s saw lots of creamy casserole recipes being raised to new heights. They were in the mainstream conversation, and they were at the dead center of it too. Casseroles would often use cream-canned soups, like cream of chicken or cream of mushroom, for the base. These soups were really cheap, light, and easy to incorporate into lots of dishes. Poppy seeds, on the other hand, didn't really have much of a presence outside basic dishes like muffins and cakes, but they started to be used in savory dishes around this decade. It was a way to make your casserole look and taste just a bit better. For the chicken, you'd use boneless breasts, which was kind of another piece of evidence of how Americans were gravitating towards hassle-free food. The seeds would be mixed into the sauce, or you would use them as a garnish on top of the casserole, along with panko breadcrumbs. Some people in the South would really just use Ritz crackers, though. It was one of the best ways to satisfy that casserole itch, especially if you wanted a casserole that wasn't too new, but wasn't really familiar either.
Pork belly with cracklings is celebrated for its luxurious flavors and contrasting textures derived from the rich layers of meat and fat found in pork belly. The preparation process starts with scoring the skin and massaging it with a blend of salt, pepper, and aromatic herbs or spices to infuse flavor. The meat is slow roasted at a low temperature to render the fat and tenderize the meat, followed by a blast of high heat to crisp the skin into cracklings. This approach ensures the pork belly stays succulent, while the outer skin turns deliciously crisp. Often served sliced thickly and accompanied by applesauce or a cider reduction, This dish perfectly pairs the pork's richness with a touch of sweet acidity. The allure of pork belly with cracklings lies in the depth of its flavors and the satisfying interplay of tender meat with crispy skin. Sloppy Joe skillet brought a sweet tang to busy weeknights when there was barely time to sit, let alone cook. Ground beef hit the hot skillet first, sizzling as it browned while the cook stirred in chopped onions and a quick sauce of tomato paste, vinegar, brown sugar, and a shake of paprika. Within minutes, the mixture thickened into a rich, saucy filling that perfumed the kitchen with a scent both savory and slightly sweet. Soft sandwich rolls were split and warmed while the beef bubbled, ready to soak up every drop. The sloppy name came alive the moment the mixture met the bread, spilling deliciously over the sides and begging for napkins. Families loved how it stretched a small amount of meat across several sandwiches, and children delighted in the messy fun of every bite. Fast, filling, and friendly to any budget, the Sloppy Joe skillet earned its place as a dependable working man's dinner that felt like a small party at the table. Cold spaghetti omelet transformed yesterday's dinner into a surprising lunch treat that delighted thrifty church cooks. Leftover spaghetti, often sauced lightly with tomato, was folded into beaten eggs, seasoned with black pepper and a touch of grated cheese, then poured into a hot skillet. As it cooked, the pasta strands settled into a golden crust while the eggs puffed gently around them. The omelet was flipped once to achieve a crisp exterior and a tender interior that sliced easily into wedges. Served at room temperature, it traveled well and stayed tasty even after hours on the picnic table. This dish reflected the inventive spirit of home cooks who refused to waste a single noodle and proved that a satisfying meal could come from simple leftovers. Children enjoyed the playful texture, while adults appreciated the hearty flavor that paired perfectly with fresh greens or sliced tomatoes from the church garden. It stood as a testament to resourcefulness and the belief that no blessing, however small, should ever be thrown away. Apple and sharp cheddar sandwich showcased the perfect marriage of sweet fruit and strong cheese, a favorite in New England, where crisp autumn apples were plentiful cooks, sliced tart apples thinly, and layered them with aged cheddar between slices of toasted rye bread. The mild heat of the toast softened the cheese slightly, allowing it to mingle with the juice of the apple for a balanced bite. This sandwich was a lunchtime staple for farmers who needed a meal that traveled well and stayed fresh during long days in the field. Children carried it to school, wrapped in wax paper, while parents enjoyed it with a hot cup of coffee at midday. Its popularity spread beyond the Northeast during the 1950s, when supermarkets made sharp cheddar more widely available even today. The combination of sharp, savory cheese and crisp, sweet apple stands out as a timeless example of how simple regional ingredients can create a sandwich that feels both rustic and refined without any unnecessary extras. Patty melt on rye delivered diner flavor in a fraction of the time, making it a favorite among families who craved something special after a long shift. Ground beef was quickly shaped into thin patties and pressed flat on a hot griddle until sizzling and browned. Meanwhile, onions sliced paper-thin softened in butter until golden and sweet, their aroma drifting through the kitchen. Slices of rye bread were spread with more butter, then layered with the beef, the onions, and generous slices of melty Swiss or American cheese. A few minutes back on the skillet brought everything together, the bread crisping as the cheese oozed around the edges. The result was a sandwich that tasted like a full diner meal, yet came together faster than any takeout order. Served with pickles or a handful of chips, the patty melt satisfied both hunger and the need for something comforting, proving that a fast dinner could still feel like a small luxury at the end of a demanding day.
The concept of a dill mushroom turnover was pretty much taken from the trend of pastries with really sweet fillings. It's not really anything new, but it is one of those food traditions that disappears and resurfaces every other decade. You have counterparts for these in all cultures, but today we're talking about how dill mushroom turnovers became such a cultural moment in America. In Pennsylvania, which was pretty much widely known for its incredible mushroom farming potential, advancements in farming techniques meant that it was a golden age for mushroom lovers. Dills, on the other hand, were slowly becoming more and more popular thanks to all the European immigrants coming over. Then you had cocktail culture. A lot of people were going to cocktail parties that basically featured appetizers and one-bite dishes. There was a bigger focus on digestible, light food instead of hearty, grand, and massive plates that could feed a whole family. You take all three of those changes, and what do you get? Tortillas, and they're an amazing choice for an entree.
Veal Prince Orloff is a lavish dish that captures the essence of French-Russian culinary elegance, named after the Russian diplomat Prince Orloff, who resided in France during the 19th century. Created by the renowned French chef Urbain Dubois, it aims to impress with its sophisticated layering and flavors. The dish features slices of roasted veal loin alternated with layers of sautéed mushrooms and onions, with slices of Mornay sauce-enriched eggplant interspersed throughout. It is then crowned with more Mornay sauce, baked until bubbly and golden. This intricate preparation not only showcases the delicate flavors of veal, but also the creamy texture of the Mornay sauce, making it a dish that stands out in both taste and presentation. Italian sausage hoagies brought the flavor of a street fair to the dinner table with little more than a skillet and a few minutes. Pre-cooked Italian sausage links browned quickly until their casings crackled and juices sizzled across the pan. Sliced onions and bell peppers joined the heat, softening and caramelizing as they soaked up the seasoned drippings. Hoagie rolls warmed in the oven until lightly crisp on the outside and tender within. When the vegetables turned golden, the sausages nestled into the rolls, draped with the sweet pepper and onion mixture, and a light scatter of shredded provolone if desired. Each bite balanced smoky spice, soft bread, and the gentle sweetness of slow-cooked vegetables. The meal felt festive, yet required almost no effort, making it a favorite for families who wanted bold taste without a long cooking session. Served with a simple green salad or a handful of chips, these hoagies brought the spirit of an Italian street vendor into a busy kitchen, showing that fast food can still be deeply satisfying and full of character when prepared with care and served piping hot. Raspberry vinegar. Spritzer refreshed thirsty guests with a balance of sweet fruit and tangy bite that felt both old-fashioned and new. Church ladies steeped fresh raspberries in cider vinegar and sugar for several days, creating a ruby-red shrub syrup that sparkled like stained glass in the sunlight. When picnic day arrived, they strained the mixture and poured it over tall glasses of crushed ice, then topped each serving with cool well water or fizzy mineral water. The first sip was brisk and lively, tart enough to wake the senses yet mellowed by the natural sweetness of the berries. Children loved the jewel color, while adults appreciated how the drink cut through the richness of fried chicken and buttery casseroles spread across the tables. Because it required only a few ingredients and could be made well ahead, it became a trusted recipe for gatherings where people lingered for hours in the summer heat. It carried the gentle memory of colonial shrubs and old kitchen wisdom, a link between generations that reminded everyone how simple ingredients could create something remarkable and worth passing on with pride. Walnut and cream cheese sandwich turned the hearty flavor of toasted nuts into a satisfying spread by folding them into whipped cream cheese until the texture became both rich and slightly crunchy. A drizzle of honey was sometimes added for a hint of sweetness, but the main appeal was the deep, nutty taste paired with smooth, tangy cheese. This sandwich gained popularity in the 1930s and 40s, when walnuts were inexpensive and widely available through local farms and victory gardens. It became a staple of afternoon teas and church socials where hosts sought recipes that were both frugal and impressive. The combination provided protein and healthy fats, which made it as nourishing as it was tasty, served on brown bread or whole wheat. It offered a rustic contrast to the refined tea sandwiches of the era. Though modern menus rarely feature it, the walnut and cream cheese sandwich remains a charming example of simple ingredients delivering a memorable and wholesome lunch. Steak tips with garlic butter turned small pieces of beef into a dinner that tasted far more luxurious than the clock allowed. Bite-sized cubes of steak were seasoned with salt and pepper, then seared quickly in a smoking hot skillet until browned on the outside and just tender within. As the meat rested for a moment, butter melted in the pan with minced garlic and a handful of fresh parsley, creating a sauce that smelled like a steakhouse. The sizzling butter was poured back over the meat, coating every piece in rich, garlicky flavor. Served over toast, rice, or even plain with a side of vegetables, the dish offered restaurant-style indulgence in the time it took to set the table. Families loved how a modest amount of beef could feel like a feast, and the sound of butter hitting the hot pan became a signal that the day's work was over and something delicious was ready.
If you really want to get ancient, exotic, and foreign, there's no better dish to talk about than mujadara. This thing is pretty much as much of a relic as the Old Testament itself. It was one of the most popular, and honestly, one of the first lentil-based dishes to dominate the globe. It used a lot of simple things like rice and caramelized onions, but it was hailed in really high regard for how healthy it was on a budget. That led to it being seen as poor man's food, even in the United States. But its reputation changed in the 60s as an exotic vintage dish that a lot of people wanted to get into. After having recently found a new, deep appreciation for lentils and simple rice-based dishes, Americans couldn't wait to try more and more of what the world had to offer in this regard. The spice blend is really worth talking about here, since the use of cumin, coriander, cinnamon, and allspice isn't exactly the most conventional blend in American settings. A lot of people have forgotten this dish, but when Middle Eastern cuisine was still making its mark, it was one of the most talked about dishes you could try out. I think some places still do a pretty good mujadara, and hey, if you've ever had one, I'd love to hear about your experience down in the comment below.
Which of Grandma's secret recipes would you bring back to your kitchen? Drop it in the comments and tell us the dish that deserves a second chance. Hit like if these recipes brought back memories, and subscribe so you never miss another trip back to Grandma's table.